Hi there, everybody, and welcome to our session with Della Hutchinson on Durer's Gothic. Della's a friend of the Colleagues of Calligraphy. She's been a member for a while, and she's our standing January feature where we look at history and manuscript. So as soon as she finishes one, I'm like, so what are you going to do next year, Della? And I think she's starting to run out of material, so we're going to force her to go do research. I've known Della for 3 years. Last summer, her and I and another calligrapher from Louisiana, we took off to Philadelphia and we spent a wonderful weekend in the manuscript libraries at University of Pennsylvania, as well as hanging out with some other scribes. And Della is a wealth of historical and technical knowledge. So lovely to have you back again, Della. Questions. If you have a question that pertains to in the moment, feel free to unmute yourself and ask it. If you have a question of a more general nature, you can put it into chat and we'll address it at the end of the session. I'll also be giving Della some time checks. This is a 2-hour session. So at the 1 hour mark, 90-minute mark and 15 minutes, I'll be interjecting. So don't mind me, everybody. Della's also put into chat some of the links and options that you're going to need. So keep an eye on chat and enjoy a great presentation. Over to you, Miss Della.
Okay.
Anne, I'm sorry to interrupt. Sorry. I can't, there's a few people in the main room. I can't seem to get them in here. I don't know
Oh,
if, so I'm sorry. I'm going to keep trying, but
Okay, I will do that right
okay. And I'm going to try from here. But
in.
anyway,
All right. Miss
okay.
Della,
Sorry to
you are
interrupt.
now pinned.
sorry. All right. We are recording. Okay. One thing I did want to ask is I would like everybody at some point during this class, this workshop, to put into chat something that you thought was worth the price of admission. So could be something that you never knew before or something that kind of just made you go, wow, I had never thought of doing that, or, you know, this is an interesting take, or you're totally like not so crazy. That's okay too. Um, and I know that for you folks who are in Central Time, it's your lunch time. So um, if you are still eating, that's fine. We will have a hands-on portion, but not right away. So, eat as fast as you can so that when we're ready for hands-on, your hands are ready too. It looked like somebody just joined us. So one thing that would be very helpful for me while we're waiting for folks to join us, if you are newish to calligraphy, would you please put into chat newish or something like that so I get a sense of how many people I'm talking to may not be familiar with some of the terms and technology uh, that I may be talking about. Or if you are new to black letter, new to Gothic textura quadrata, which is the hand that we'll be looking at here, that would also be helpful. Okay, so, all right, so I do have a couple of new people. That's great. So for those of you who are new, if I if I use a term and you're not familiar with that term, please feel free to jump in and say, explain that, Della, and I'll be happy to pause and give you an explanation. So those of you who are new to Gothic, are you fans of Uncial and the other scripts, or is it just broad edge in general that you're new to? Because I know we have a lot of pointed pen people today. All right. And do you think Do you think it's okay for me to get started?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, so we'll get started. I am going to first share my screen because I want to talk about things that are in the drive. So that means I will not be able to see your chat, so Anne will be monitoring that for us. Okay, so I don't know if anybody's had a chance to take a look at what's in the Google Drive, and I know some of you had problems accessing things, and I apologize for that, but you know, it is what it is. We do what we can. Um, so here is the Durer folder, and there's a folder at the top, additional resources. The things that you're looking at right now are things that I thought would be useful for this class. So there's a patterns worksheet that we'll be using during the hands-on portion. If you haven't printed these out, it's okay. We can still make do. It just may be easier if you have them printed out. And then there's the worksheets that we'll be using for the hands-on portion. And then this is one that I wanted to talk about because this has some terminology in it that I want everybody to be familiar with because I am going to be using these terms when I'm talking. So one of the first things that we need to be aware of as calligraphers is how high to make the letters, the height of the letters. And we refer to that either as the X height, because that's how high the letter X is, or we use the word minim. And that distance is this indicated with this green arrow. So between the headline, which is the red line, and the baseline, which is the blue line, is our X height or our minim. And the baseline, as you can see from this illustration, is the line on which all of the letters sit, or the main portion of the letters sit on that baseline. The headline is the top line for letters that are just of the same height as the X. So the I, the N, the M, and so on. Of course, letters that stick above the headline are ascenders. Letters that fall below the baseline are our descenders. So those are some terms you really need to be familiar with. Another thing that you need to be familiar with for this particular hand is the pen angle. I mean, this is something that you need to be familiar with for any hand. So you need to know how high to make the letters. You need to know what is the angle that you have to hold your pen in relationship to the baseline. For this particular script, we are going to be using a 45-degree angle. And those are indicated in purple. And I've given you some examples here to show you how consistent that 45-degree angle is. So off the top of the I, off the top of the N, off the top of the M, off the top of the R, and so on. You'll notice here on this right side of the letter V, it looks like a U, but it's technically a V. The 45-degree angle is that purple line, but you can see the top of that letter, that top of that stroke, that vertical stroke, is not quite 45 degrees. So that's something you need to pay attention to when you are doing that particular letter form. So down here with the letter C, we have a lovely 45 degrees on the left side, but you can see again, this dotted line is showing you this is not at 45 degrees. So it's a little steeper than what we what we would see on the left side. So this angle here is not parallel to that angle. So how high to make the letters? What angle do I hold my pen at? Another thing you need to pay attention to is, are the letters slanted at all? No, these are not. These are pickets, fence, straight up and down, no slant whatsoever. So that makes our job a little bit easier as a calligrapher. And then in order to understand the letters, the ductus, that word means the order of the strokes. So where you put your pen first, how your pen moves to get to the end of the end of the stroke or the end of the letter. So for the most part, Our letters start at our strokes start at the top and they come down towards us to the right. And there are occasions when you're going to be going in a different direction, but that happens very rarely. So you just need to kind of pay attention to that. When do I deviate from that, pull the stroke towards you down and to the right? And so this just kind of gives you an idea of the letter shapes. And these are all from Durer. Um, these are not anything that I created. I just added the colorful bits. And then the second page is that same thing without any of the colorful bits. If that's just, if the colorful bits are distracting, then just look at the one without it. This is something I'm going to talk about is the pen angles. Again, super important no matter what hand that you're doing. You need to have an understanding of how the pen angle changes the aspect of the appearance of the letters that you're writing. This is a copy of a page from a book called Practical Calligraphy. This is how I encountered these letters that Durer created. And so I just made a copy of that here for you. So you have the whole alphabet, the letter side by side with the skeleton version. And then in case some of the letters don't look familiar to you, I've given you a cheat sheet here where they're labeled. So the letter I, followed by the N, M, R. This is a half R, which is a medieval letter, probably not going to be useful for most people, but I wanted to label it just because it's on the sheet and he talks about it. Although I don't think he uses the term half R. He just calls it another variation of the letter R. And then these are his instructions that I will be referring to. And at the very end is where he has those skeletons and then the filled in version. And then he gives you capitals. And this is what he refers to as a more modern variation of this particular script. So you can use this for ideas for embellishing and kind of making it your own. And then there are some links of interest. This top one takes you to Project Gutenberg's version of the document that I just showed you. There's a really interesting blog post about Durer there, and then just some more information. So feel free to check out any of those links if you are interested. And that's what's in the main folder. And then there are additional resources, some blank pages, some documents that I've created over the years, just hints and tips, things like that, things that might be of use to you. So these were not necessary for the class today, but you might find them useful. So please feel free to check out the drive anytime that you like. I mean, it's going to be accessible to you as long as you have the link. So, so there's that. For those of you who aren't familiar with Durer, I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of who I'm talking about. So, here's his famous monogram. So he has many famous paintings. This is one I particularly love, is the hare. This is also a famous one that he's done, his rhinoceros. And then Melancholia is one of his very most popular, well-known. And you can see in this image, if you look at it long enough, there are tools that belong to artists and craftsmen kind of sprinkled throughout his picture. So, for someone who's an artist, a draftsman, a craftsman, it's not surprising that he would have written a treatise that talks about geometry. And so the document that I'm talking about today that we'll be using is from his treatise on geometry. And the book itself is published by Dover Books, and it's called Of the Just Shaping of Letters, just that section. And the beginning part of that book, and it's a really slim book, talks about Roman capitals, and it has circles and lines and angles and so on. And then the latter half of that book is where he's talking about the Gothic texture quadrata that we'll be looking at. So that was just to give you kind of a brief overview of where I'm coming from with this, where this came from. And I was just super excited when I discovered this book because I had never encountered an artist from the Middle Ages who gave us step-by-step directions on how to do letters. There are manuscripts available from the Middle Ages where it's artists talking about how to do this particular style of artwork or how to do this artistic element step by step. But this is the first time I'd encountered something where he's giving us step-by-step directions on how to make the letters. And what I love most about this is the fact that he very deliberately does not start with the letter A and go to the letter Z. What he does is he starts with the simplest letter, the letter I, and moves forward so that he's building on when he does later letters, he refers back to some of the earlier letters. Sometimes he refers back to the I, sometimes he refers back to the N, and so on. And I think that is a much better way of explaining how to do calligraphy than starting with the letter I or starting with the letter A. So that just really tickled me to know that somebody else felt that that was, a master from the Middle Ages felt that that was a better way of explaining things to people. So do we have any questions so far about anything that I have talked about? If so, please feel free to give a shout out or put them into chat, whatever, and then Anne will let us know. So the first thing that I want to talk about is pen angles. And so I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to use my document camera. Here it is. Okay, and there we go, pen angles. And I need to make this smaller so you can see it. Okay, and so for those of us who aren't math people, a 90-degree angle is the corner here where a vertical line meets a horizontal line. And rarely in calligraphy do we need a 90-degree angle, but there are occasions. For example, if you're doing a very fancy Gothic letter, black letter, and you want to fill up some of the space in the interior of the letter, you might turn your pen 90 degrees and just do a really skinny line. So when you hold your pen at 90 degrees to the horizontal line, when you're drawing your pen straight down at a 90-degree angle, you're going to get a line that is very thin. When you are holding your pen at a 60-degree angle, so if you line up your pen, I'm going to make that just a little bit bigger so you can see a little better. Where is my cursor? There he is. Okay, so you line up your pen nib, the flat edge of your broad edge pen, along that straight line, that angled line at 60 degrees, and it's 60 degrees up from the baseline. So you line up your pen and come straight down, and you see that you get a line that is thicker than our 90 degrees. So I'm going to put that side by side. So back to my 60. Okay. 45 degrees is coming closer to our baseline. Again, we'll line that up and come straight down. Okay, and you can see it's thicker than our 60. So keeping that same 45 degrees. Yep, there you go. So we have 90, 60, 45. If we do a 30-degree angle, it's thicker still. 20-degree angle. This time I'm going to slide it over first and then do my 20-degree angle. And then, of course, 0 is going to give us the fattest line possible. So we're holding that parallel to our baseline, coming straight down. So you can see there that you get quite a lot of variation based on how you hold your pen. So this is 60, this is 45, this one is 30, this one is 20. Did I skip something? 45, 20, no, I didn't. And then that's 0. So that's just really, I think, important for us to have in our head, because for the most part, this alphabet is lettered at 45 degrees, but there are times when it's going to change, and you just need to be familiar with what's going to happen when I change the angle of my pen, what's going to happen to those letters. If you want to, feel free to take a screenshot of that, and I'll just hold for a moment. And now I'll move it. So pen angles is really super important. One thing that I would love to suggest for anybody who's interested is that you take an index card or some piece of paper that's a little on the stiff side and draw lines that are 1 inch apart, and then from one edge of the card or paper, draw a line that's 1 inch down. So I'll turn this to the side so you can see the whole thing. So it's just, this is a 4x6 index card. And then cut this into strips. And then what is very helpful is if you use this to create little tools for yourself, little guides. And so I've created a little set for myself. So here's that line that was 1 inch down, and I measured a 25-degree angle and then cut it on that line so that I have a set of 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, and 50. And these are really helpful for when you are checking your own work to see, okay, how consistent am I? Have I been holding my pen consistently at a 45-degree angle? And you can just use this to kind of follow along, check your tops, check your bottoms, and make sure that your angles are consistent. And it's also helpful when you're trying to learn a hand and you want to determine, okay, where does this, where do I need to change the angle of the pen for this particular letter? So that's really a super helpful thing to have. So I'm going to talk next about the skeletons that Durer has. And to do that, when you're looking at, if you're looking at his description, I mean, he's writing in the 1500s. So some of what he says isn't always easy to interpret. So I'm going to move my camera back. I think I can do that. Now, raise this up a little bit. Put this back. Okay, so we'll start with the letter I, and hopefully you'll be able to see that. Yes, okay. All right. So here's his description. I'm not going to do this with every single letter because we'd be here forever, but I'm just going to do a couple just so you get a sense of his wording and how he describes things. So he says, first make your eye of equal squares, of which 3 are properly set one over the other. So here I have 3 squares set one over the other. And he says at the top of the top one and the bottom of the bottom one, divide into points. That is to say, into 3 equal parts. Now, the trouble with that explanation is he doesn't say whether we're dividing it into 3 equal parts horizontally or whether we're dividing it into 3 equal parts vertically or both. So I've done both. And there's a reason for that, and that's because of what comes next. So then he says to take a square that's the same size as the others and set it in an oblique manner so that its diagonal be vertical. So here's its diagonal, and that's vertical. And he says its angle on the first point of the top square. So I'm taking this to be the first point of the top square. So I'm going to set my diamond there. And this way, he says, the oblique square shall extend with its angles more to the left. So if you look at the left side here, we see more black on the left side than we do on the right side. And then he says to produce upwards on either side after the width of the superimposed squares, right lines to meet the sides of the oblique set square. So this is the oblique set square, the black one. So he's saying draw a line here so that this extends up into that part. And then do the same thing below, except that you must set the angle of the oblique square on the second point. So I'm assuming that's this one, the one farthest to the right in the bottom of the lowest square. Okay, and again, he says, draw lines so that this will meet up with that square. And when we do that, sorry if I'm making anybody seasick. Yeah. If we do that, and I'm going to try not to move my diamonds too much. Okay. So we have a letter I where this part sticks out farther than this part, and this part sticks out farther than that part. So those are things that we want to make sure that we're doing to have that perfect letter I that he talks about. And then he says, finish it by drawing a little increscent, like a circle at the top to make it look like an I, to give it a dot. So that's his explanation for the letter I. If we want to move to the next letter N in his explanation, so it's very similar. He says we just need 2 of the letter I set so that their angles at the top and the bottom touch. So we want to make sure we have that one and that one. Now he says to have those corners touch. And that means that the space in between the 2 uprights is going to be very, very narrow. And he points that out, and I have it highlighted in yellow. So when those 2 diamonds touch at the top and bottom, you kind of get the idea there. He says the space between the 2 shall be narrower. So this space here, we call that the counter, is narrower than the width of the uprights. And don't put the crescents over the top. And he says that all of the short letters, so anything that would be of an X height, would be this height. And then he says to make the M, just do the same thing as the N, only you have 3 standards. So this is what he refers to as the standard. So do that to make the letter N. And the next one I wanted to talk about was the R. So the R is very simply a letter I. So we've got our top diamond, we've got our bottom diamond, we've got this part, and he says just add an equal square to the right so that our corners will be touching, like so. Okay, that's the regular R. And then the half R, this is the one he says you can make it in this fashion. And I'm going to switch to the skeleton sheet so you can kind of see what he's talking about. So this is the half R. And in medieval calligraphy, the half R was a shape that was used to save space when the R would come after a letter that has a rounded right-hand bowl, like a letter P or a letter B, for example. The half R would be often used in Gothic scripts after that rounded bowl. So he says to make the bottom part as like you would for the letter I. So the foot is the same as before, but you add the two diagonal squares which touch each other with their angles in the middle point of the vertical limb. And then again, he says, draw upwards to connect the diamond with the vertical part. So again, this is probably not a letter form that most of you would be interested in using, but because it's on the sheet and I didn't want you to get thrown off, like, what is that? I thought I should talk about that one. And then the only other one that I'll talk about, no, he does have a V. All right, so we'll talk about the V for a moment. So in his explanation, he says that there are 3 V's. So this is 1, 2, and 3. And he considers the W to be a variation, because it is, of the letter V. So this one looks like a U, and this one looks more like a V to us. In the Middle Ages, the letter U and V were used interchangeably. So if you've ever seen like a carving of the name Julius Caesar, that name does not look like Julius to us. It looks like IVL IVS. So the V and the U were used interchangeably. So this letter V, he says, is used at the beginning of a sentence. So presumably this version would be used in the middle of a word. And of course, the W would have been used when a W was needed. W is not a letter that is often found in medieval calligraphy because it was not a letter in the Latin alphabet. But because he's German, and German words do have that W sound on them, they needed to have a letter like that. So when he talks about doing this particular one, he says, and I'll move my paper over here so you can see that too. So that's at the beginning of the sentence. So draw the first part as you would for the letter I. And he says only at the bottom, push the diagonal square a little further to the right. So what he's telling us is when we're doing that, sometimes the letter at the bottom does not stick out. That diamond does not stick out on the left-hand side. It is flush with the vertical. And he tells us that sometimes in his explanations, that it needs to be coming straight down. So he's saying push it to the right so that we're not having that little notch on the left-hand side. And so when we go back to his explanation, his description, here's where he says it's hither angle. So hither is the left side, does not project beyond the side of the vertical limb. So that's what I just showed you. And then set the second limb to the right of this. So this is the second limb. And cut it off below by an oblique line drawn from the lowest angle upwards to the right, as far as the middle point of the lowest of the three superimposed squares. So we're drawing a line here. So this part is a little problematic because this angle here, and I'm going to make that bigger so that you can see that a little better. And I'm going to move this. So at the top, we have that lovely 45-degree angle right here. But when we get down to the bottom, see the difference? See, here's our 45-degree angle, that edge of that black. And that line is much lower than that 45-degree angle. So that means something has to happen down here in order to make that change. So you need to have a pen manipulation at this bottom spot. And we'll do that when we get to that letter. So just kind of be aware. So he's telling us to push this to the side so it's not sticking out. And we also have to do something so that we have more than a square's worth of letter or ink in that spot. So that makes that letter just a little bit tricky. Okay, so any questions about what I've shown you so far? If so, now's a good time to chat while I'm kind of rearranging my things. Yep. Is there anybody who did not get a chance to print out the handouts? Or is there anybody who does not have either a 3.5, a 3.8 size nib? If you don't, it's not a problem. You can make do with whatever you have, but you may find it easier to work with what I'm doing. So at some point before we shift to the actual hands-on part, we'll probably take a couple of minutes break. If anybody needs to go print something out, that would be a good time for that. Okay, and one more thing that I wanted to talk about too, before we get to our actual hands-on part, is proportions. And this is also partly for the people who don't have the same size nib that I'm going to be using. So if you don't have a 3.5, a 3.8, something like that, whatever nib you're planning to use for the for the hands-on portion, what you want to do is just make a calligraphy ladder to determine how tall your lines need to be apart, how far apart they need to be. So to do a calligraphy ladder, you can just make this. And we want, these letters are done 5 nib widths high. So you take whatever nib you're using and you just draw a short stroke that would be straight across. So there's one. And then you stack it, oops, and 2, stack it again, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and that tells you how far apart you want your lines to be with whatever nib it is that you are planning to use for this. So, you know, that was my 3.8 millimeter Pilot parallel pen. If I was using something that was 5 millimeters, it would be a little bit taller because my nib is a little bit wider. Okay, you can see, that this is using this size, my lines would need to be a little bit farther apart than here. So as long as you have 5 nib widths high, it doesn't matter what size nib you're using because it's all about proportions. And I did want to talk about, just briefly, give you kind of a sample of what I mean by the proportions. So if you are using something that's slightly less than what is kind of used as standard, you might get letters that are a little bit more dense and more darker on the page. So these letters are done at 4 nib widths high. And that's pretty close to what we're used to looking at for Gothic letters. This is 5 nib widths high, which is what he recommends. And then you see when we start making it even taller than what he recommends, then we really start stretching those letters out of shape, out of proportion, and the ratio of black to white space is now off, and the letters do not look as good when you stretch them out taller than what we're accustomed to. Now, you may want to do that for a special effect, but just be aware that, by changing the proportions, you are changing the characteristics and the appearance. So, if you can go with 4 or 5 nib widths, you'll probably get letters that look much more pleasing to you than if you used a different set of letter heights, nib widths. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about was making a diamond. And for this particular script, the diamonds are crucial. You really need to nail those diamonds before you can really successfully do Gothic or Gothic texture quadrata. And it took me a long time. Somebody taught a class in which they gave a trick, and then the light bulb went on for me, and I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. So ever since then, I have been sharing this trick with other people. So if you think about 2 lines coming together at 90-degree angles, what you want to do with your nib is you want the top corner of your nib to be on the vertical line above the horizontal. And you want the left corner of your nib to be on the horizontal. I think I need to make that red line just a little bit longer at the top. So you want to position your nib so that the top corner is on the red line, the vertical line, and the bottom corner is on the horizontal line. And you want to move your pen just enough so that they switch places, so that this corner will be on the vertical line and this corner will be on the horizontal line. So I'll just show you that first. Let me try and move this up just a little bit more. Okay, so I'm just going to move my nib until I've switched corners. So now my bottom corner is on the vertical and my upper corner is on the horizontal. And when you do that, you get a perfect square, a perfect diamond. So that's what you want to be thinking about as we're doing diamond shapes. Okay. All right. I'm going to give folks 3 minutes if you need to run, print something out. If you need to gather your supplies, you'll just need something to write with and something to write on. Hopefully the handouts. And if anybody has any questions, I'll happily entertain them now.
Looking good, Della.
Okay, I'm trying to get things set up here so that it's not going to make your eyes go buggy. Oh, we don't need those just yet. This one.
So you are 45 minutes in.
Okay, good. Thank you. Perfect. It's kind of where I was hoping to be when we got to the talking part, ready to start the hands-on part. And this is really crookedy. I think my lamp is crooked. That will help. Okay, anybody? Anything? Not yet.
Nothing in
Okay.
chat.
Okay. Nothing in chat.
Except some praise for your visuals.
Okay.
And then Pamela said, this is really the best handouts for a newbie in calligraphy.
All right. Well, that's good to know. All right.
Della, I have one question.
Okay.
The Google Drive link that you sent, I'm somehow not able to open that. Do you want to make it anyone with the link can open it, or
I
do
thought
need
I
it?
It
have that,
is,
but let me check.
yeah, I can get into it. Can anybody else not get into it?
Sometimes I know that people who do not have Google addresses have a problem getting in. So if you have a Google account, use
Yeah, I
that.
do. I actually tried it from two Google accounts and I'm still not able to open it.
Oh,
What are
that's
you getting? Where is it taking
It
you?
just goes into the search bar saying Durer and it doesn't open up all the additional resources.
hmm.
Hmm.
So
All
I
right.
did get the handouts. I do have the handouts.
Okay.
Okay.
I
Let,
can,
I don't
Anne, I
have
can
the,
work on that and see if I can get it another link or something in the chat so you can continue.
yeah.
and if worst
Thanks,
comes to
Sally.
worst, if you put your email into chat, I
Yeah.
can just send you the documents as PDFs after class.
Got it. Thank you so much. Sorry.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I emailed the PDFs individually to everybody, Della.
Yes, I saw that. I did get that. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay. All right. So ready for hands-on?
go for it. And
Go
thanks,
for it.
Sally.
All right. So we're not going to use everything on this sheet, but we're going to use the really most important things. And so one of the most important things is these angled lines at the top here. And you can see here's another one. That is so that you can check your angle frequently because it is essential that you have your pen consistently at a 45-degree angle if you want those diamonds to be diamond shaped. For this class, I'm just going to use a quickie Y and C calligraphy marker. This is 3.5. I'm just using that because I'm a messy person, and for me to try to teach with ink is sometimes a recipe for disaster. So for me personally, while teaching, I just stick with the markers. But whatever you have to use is great. So the first thing that we want to do, check our angle 45 degrees. And then we're going to use this row, this area that's numbered 1. And you're going to put the lower corner of your nib on the lower line, and you're going to put the upper corner of your nib on the upper line so it touches at that 45 degrees. And then you're going to pull your arm so that your upper corner will then be on the lower line. So the upper corner is going from the upper line to the lower line, and then you're going to stop. And I need to pull that in, and I need to focus. Let's make that a little bit bigger. Okay. Okay. All right. I'm going to do that again. So my lower corner is on the lower line. My upper corner is on the upper line. My pen is at 45-degree angle, and I'm going to pull until I get my upper corner on the lower line. Okay, and I would say do maybe 3 to 5 of those. Again, check your angle, make sure it's 45 degrees. You're going to get tired of hearing me say, check your angle, but it's really important. Okay. And what you're looking for is the corner on the left and the corner on the right are on that horizontal line at the bottom. Okay. So 3 to 5 of those. And when you feel like, okay, I've got the hang of that, we're going to go down to row 2 and do the same thing, except instead of leaving space in between our 3 diamonds, we're going to have our diamonds touch. So again, lower corner on the lower line, pen at 45-degree angle, upper corner going from the upper line to the lower line, and we're going to touch that right corner with the left nib, pick it up and touch. Okay, that last one was the best one. Again, check your angle, make sure you've got 45 degrees. Do that again so that your corners are touching. And maybe make a third one just to say, I got this. Okay, and what I'm hoping that you get from doing these two is you'll get a sense of how far your arm needs to move. And it's your arm, your whole arm that's moving from your shoulder. It's not your wrists, it's not your fingers that are moving, it's your whole arm. So you want to just have a sense in your body of how far that movement needs to go before you need to stop. Once you have diamonds, you feel like diamonds are pretty good. Now we're going to do something very similar, but instead of doing our diamonds horizontally, we're going to do them vertically. So that's a little bit more of a challenge. So again, we're going to check our 45-degree angle. Our top corner of our nib is going to be at the top line. Press down. Okay, pick it up when you have a diamond. Okay, and now we're going to have our top corner of our nib touching that lower corner of the diamond. And I missed that just a little bit. Okay, and again. And hopefully you'll get 3 diamonds where their corners are touching. Top corner is touching the bottom corner of the previous one. And I'd say do 3 to 5 sets of those. Again, we're just working on getting a sense of how to move our arm to get the look that we want. Okay, number 4 is going to be a combination of 2 and 3, and that's a little bit trickier. You can try it either way. You can try doing your 3 horizontals first and then doing your verticals, and then switch it and do 3 verticals and then add your horizontals. So I'm going to start with the horizontal 3 diamonds, and I'm going to use this middle block here to give me an idea of where I want to start my line. And I want to check my angle. So I'm starting here. 1, 2, 3. And now here's where it's tricky, because we want to put our top corner at the top line, and we want to end so that our bottom corner is touching that top diamond in the middle. So, and I missed that a little bit. It's tricky. All right, so let's try that one again, see if I can do a better job of placing it. It's a little wonky. All right, and now I'm going to do 3 verticals. And you may find it easier to do one set than another. Again, this one's a little tricky because you have to kind of judge how far do I need to go over here to do this one. And I did not get that at all close. But it's a good idea just to do things like this, little patterns like this, where you're not caring about letters, just to kind of get your body warmed up and figuring out where things are. And the nice thing about this little pattern is if you put little doo-wops on the corners, you could turn that into a decorative element if you need to fill up some space somewhere. I did want to also mention about, you will notice on the sheets, you'll notice a blank space here. And that blank space is a reminder to us to move our paper sideways. So there's a certain amount of space that you want to keep your paper, your working area in front of you, in front of your nose. And if you get too far over to the right-hand side or too far over, then your proportions and your angles will be off. So this is just a guide to remind you, move it over so it's more in front of you. Okay.
Is doo-wop a technical term, Della?
Doo-wop.
Doo-wop.
It is doo-wop. I don't know. But it's a it's a little fiddly bit that sometimes can be useful just for more than just having fun playing with patterns. Right. Number 5 is vertical lines. And what we want to do is we want to try to, in one smooth stroke, go from the top to the bottom and fill up the interior of that stroke. So what we want to do is, again, check our angle 45 degrees. And if you want to, you could just you could go from the lower corner here to the upper corner, because that'll be a 45-degree angle. Press firmly across your nib and then come straight down and stop when your lower point gets to the baseline. Okay, and do a couple of those. So again, line it up. So it's 45 degrees. Press firmly across the whole width of your nib. Stop when you get to the baseline. Now I'm going to do one that's going to be wonky on purpose. Okay, and you notice this kind of edge here that looks like somebody's taken a bite out of crime. That happens because I was not pushing firmly across the whole width of my nib. So if you get little skips like that, that is just an indication to you that, 1, press more firmly across the whole width of your nib. 2, try not holding your breath. Instead, try breathing out as you go down your stroke. So take a breath in. Let it out as you're coming down. So even pressure across the whole width and breathing out, not holding your breath. So do a couple of those until you feel like you're successful with that. And then I'm going to make it a little harder for you. So for number 6, what I want you to do is I want you to combine a diamond with a vertical and a diamond. So, and this is without lifting your pen. So check our angle 45 degrees, a diamond first. Okay, without lifting your pen, come straight down. Without lifting your pen, do your other diamond. Okay, and now do that same stroke, but the left corner of your next diamond at the top needs to touch the right corner of the previous diamond at the top. Again, check your angle. So diamond, straight down, diamond. And do 3 to 5 of those. Diamond, straight down, diamond. Again, keep checking your angle because it's so easy. On that third stroke, the one I just did, I changed the angle of my pen just a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to point out to you my flaw, and that is when we are looking at our verticals, what we want is we want a consistent amount of space, white space, in between our verticals. This one is way too wide, and this one is a little too narrow compared to the other ones. Are you seeing that? So what you really want is you want to try to work on that picket fence so that you have the same, well, normally in Gothic, textura quadrata, normally we want the same amount of white space in between our uprights as the space, the width of the uprights themselves. Now, Durer tells us in his instructions that's not the case for his letters. They're compressed more tightly together. So an amount of space that is thinner than the width of the black lines is actually preferable for him. Okay. And then the last thing that I wanted you to do down here in number 7 is I want you to do 3 diamonds in a row, but this time, instead of picking up your pen, I want you to just go 1, 2, 3 without picking it up so that it would look like this. So checking our angle of 45 degrees, lower corner on the lower line, upper corner on the upper line. No lift, keep going. No lift, keep going. Okay, so that's without a pen lift. Now I want you to do 3 diamonds where the diamonds touch corners, but this time do lift your pen. Okay. Do you see that with this one, where you did not lift your pen, there's a little bit of black in between each one. So it's not as crisp as it is when you lift your pen. So pen lifts are really important in this hand if you want your diamonds to look like diamonds and not like the zigzag stripe on a Charlie Brown t-shirt. We don't want that. That's a no. Okay. All right. So hopefully that has given folks who don't have a lot of experience with Gothic just an idea of what you need to do in order to get your letters started and ended for the most part. Okay. Any questions about that? All right. So we're going to switch to sheet 1 of our handout. And you will probably see that I've put an aftermarket edition here in red so that it would stand out. And so what I've done is I've taken my ruler and I've gone between the bottom block number 4 and block number 5 at the bottom, and I've just drawn a line there. And I've done the same thing between block number 1 and block number 2 at the top. And that is just to help remind us that's where our diamonds need to be. Okay. So for our letter I, oh, there is one other thing that I wanted to talk about with the letter I. Where is that? And that is where to place our nib when we are getting ready to do our downstroke. So when you're thinking about your letter, well, I need to make this smaller. Okay, so here's your diamond that you're making for the letter I or beginning of the N, whatever. Okay, and you want to place your pen nib in the right spot so that you have more of it sticking out on this side than you do on that side. So you do your diamond first. And then if you think about your square being divided into thirds, I should have done one divided into thirds, but I don't have one. So let's do this. Think about, so there's a third down and there's a third down. So what you want to do with your pen is you want to line it up so that it's a third of the way down. A third of the way down from the top edge of that block. So you're going from here to here with your pen nib, and then you're coming straight down. Let me see, do I have? I do, but they're over here somewhere. There's my 45. Okay, so if you think about your pen would be here, about a third of the way down, and that's going to give you that stroke that's going to give you more sticking out on the left than you have on the right. Does that make sense? I hope. Okay, and then when you get down to the bottom, okay, when you get down to the bottom, what you want to think about is, so here's your downstroke. So when you're doing your placing your nib for this bottom part, you want to have a tiny bit sticking out on this side and more of it sticking out on this side. So that's how you kind of arrange your pen, how you place your pen so that you're getting the right tops and the bottoms. So let me zoom in again.
And you're coming up on 45 minutes, Della.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So our diamond. Okay, and we're picking up our pen and we're putting our nib about a third of the way down from the top edge. Coming straight down. Okay, picking up our pen, moving it over so we have a little bit sticking out on the left-hand side. And your landing zone for your upper corner of your nib is going to be kind of in the middle of the shaft. So that's kind of where you are thinking about putting the upper corner of your pen. So we have a little bit sticking out on the left and more on the right. Okay, so if you look at here, you have a lot more on this side than you do on that side. And this should have a little more than that side. All right, so we'll do that one again. Better this time, 45 degrees. Press, pick up about a third. I'm not getting that corner. Third of the way down, straight down. Pick it up, move it over a little bit, and my landing zone for my upper corner is going to be kind of in the middle of the shaft, like that. And we put our little crescent at the top and we have an eye. Okay. For the letter R, it's a letter I with an extra diamond. So easy peasy. So again, 45 degrees, do our diamond, straight down. Oh, there we go. I'll do that again. Okay, so check our angle, 45 degrees. Okay. Straight down. Upper corner sort of in the middle of our shaft. Pull it over to the left, or to the right rather, and then we want corners that kiss. Okay. Letter X is a little wonky. So when you're looking at the letter X, it's the letter I, it's the letter R. We need to add this part and we need to add this part. This part is going to go away from, so once we do our diamond here, then we're going to just make a little pull to the left. So that's one of the times, very few times, when you are not going to the right. So our letter I, down. Okay, our diamond at the bottom. And with the corner, the left corner of your nib, so you want to rock your pen up so you're not touching the right corner at all. Just rock it up onto the left and then just pull to the left like that. And then come up here and do your other diamond. And then for the crossbar, it's going to be in the middle. And I'm going to point out here. And one thing that you need to see is that the right corner of your nib needs to touch the vertical. And so you're going to have about a half a pen width here. So we're holding, and this is not a 45-degree angle. This is a 30-degree angle. So you need to adjust your angle. Let me show you that. You need to adjust your angle slightly so that it's a little narrower. So here, for example, is our 45-degree angle. No, it's not. It's not 30, it's 60. My bad. So, and I don't have a 61, but I do have a 50. So you can see that it's a little steeper. It's a little steeper than 50 degrees. So just rock it slightly so it's a little bit steeper. As long as this side and this side is parallel, you're good. And you want to stop when you have gone one nib width to the right of the upright on the right-hand side. So that would look like this. So midway, right? So checking our 45-degree angle, but going slightly steeper. And then go this one. Touching that left vertical with the corner of my nib, straight across. And you also want to think about below stopping so that this corner of your horizontal line is underneath the bottom corner of your diamond. So you can see that here. And that's our wonky letter X. Okay, the letter C, I'm going to show you that here on this one. The letter C starts at our headline. We have a 45-degree angle here, comes straight down. We have the bottom here, but this is slightly different. So you can see here, get through that our angle on the C on the left side is different from the angle of the C on the right side. This is much steeper, closer to this angle than the 45-degree angle. So we need to do a little bit of pen manipulation if we want our letter C to look like Durer's letter C. So we start, no diamond at the top, straight down, our diamond at the bottom, okay? And then we change our angle so it's steeper than our 45. Okay. And we come across just a little bit. Just a little bit. And then the letter E is similar, but of course slightly a little bit different. So again, starting at our 45-degree angle with our 45-degree angle coming straight down, diamond at the bottom. Okay, with this one, we need to do about twice the length of a diamond. And then just a real light flick back into the vertical. And that space in between the upright and the diagonal should be very narrow. When you look at Durer's, you see that there's a very minimal amount of space there. And you can see here how much this diagonal overlaps with the vertical. There's a lot of overlap there. Okay. And then the letter T starts just a little bit above the headline, just a little bit, but it still is at our 45-degree angle. Okay, so just a little bit above our headline, straight down, diamond at the bottom. Okay, and the crossbar is, again, this is at a 45-degree angle, and the top of the crossbar is following the headline. So we want to come straight across. And just like we did with that X, we want to have one nib width here at the top and a half a nib width at the bottom. And let me show you what I mean by that. So at the top on the right hand side, it's
You're off the screen.
yes, I'm sorry. I just checked. At the top of the crossbar, it's one nib width, and here it's half. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So those are the letters that are just the one minim high that are single upright, single vertical stroke. The next page gives you letters that are two vertical strokes. 237. So Anne, how much time do I have?
Just over half an hour.
Half an hour. Okay.
So 20
All right.
minutes until the top of the hour, and we stop for questions.
Okay. All right. So N is just two I's put together. M is three I's put together. So up, and I did not check my angle, so that was wrong. True. And Durer says that the diamonds should touch. And if they do, hopefully, I'm going to switch to my highlight parallel pen because I am not happy with how fuzzy my calligraphy marker is. 45. Much better. And this is where we're needing to be concerned about how much space is in between our verticals. We want it to be less wide than the width of our uprights. Okay, so for an M, and here is where consistency matters a lot. Okay, so what you really are looking for is the same amount of white space on either side of that middle stroke. Okay, with our U, I'm going to put his version back on just to remind you. On the right-hand side, there is no diamond at the top. Okay. So for U, we want to do the start like it's a letter I. Check our angle first. Okay, but no diamond at the top. Oh, I'm off. No diamond at the top. All right, and here you want to start with the upper corner of your nib at the headline, and the lower corner is going to be in line with that right corner of your top diamond here. So if you think about, okay, I need to go this much distance away. My left corner is in line with the right corner. My upper corner is at the headline. Okay, and then you're coming down and you put your diamond at the bottom. Okay, and that's our U without that vertical line or the horizontal line in the beginning. So that's just something you're thinking about. Like that. It's very bumpy because I have another paper underneath with lines on it, and the lines underneath are kind of throwing off my pen a little bit. Okay, so that's a U, and in his alphabet that's a V as well, but for our purposes we're just going to call that a U. And then the V, and remember that I said that this is problematic because we have an angle change here. So we need to do some pen manipulation there at the bottom. So we start off with the letter V, just like the letter I. Check our angle. Up. And remember, when we are moving, we are not having anything stick out on the left. So in this case, when we get down to the bottom, we just go straight, we go to the right without picking up our pen. Okay. Now, when we leave off here, that means that we're leaving off at a 45-degree angle. But we know that we need a lower angle. So when you get to this bottom part, what you have to do, I'm going to just tilt my Pilot Parallel pen. What you have to do when you get to this bottom angle is plant your lower left corner nib, but keep going with the right corner. So I'm going to see if I can zoom in a little bit more on that one. There it is. I keep losing my cursor. That is not good. All right, let's try autofocusing. All right, so check our angle, 45 degrees. Pick up your pen, move it up. We're not picking it up at the bottom. When we get to the bottom, we're planting our left corner. We're doing our diamond and turning it just a little bit. And that, okay, one more time. Diamond, pick it up, down. Don't pick up your pen. Over to the left, to the right, and then turn it a little bit. That's better. Okay, and then we come up and do the beginning of our eye. Okay, and now we're going to turn to that 23, 25-degree angle. So it's about, so if you think about your 45-degree angle, what we want to do is divide that in half. So that's the angle that we're going to come down at from, instead of 45 like we would have after our diamond, we're coming down at 23 degrees. Okay. And so what that's doing is it's cutting off some of that corner that we would have had. Let me do it 45 degrees first so you get a sense of what I mean. So here it's only 45. I'm not changing the angle of my pen at all. And to help, I'm going to just give that a little flick up there at 45 so you can see where that would go. Okay, so you see how much space there is in that triangle underneath the letter V. So now I'm going to do, that was incorrect. Now I'm going to do it when we're changing the angles. So here we go. Do not pick up my pen. plant my pen and I'm going to turn it a little bit. I'm going to put a little flick there. That's my landing zone. You don't normally would not do that. Okay, 45 degrees for our diamond at the top. And then move it back down to our 23 degrees. Get to my landing zone. Do you see how much less space there is here than there is here? And that's what we're looking for, less space. This is at 45. And this is more like 23 degrees. So there's a lot less space down there than there would be if it were at 45. And I'll show you that kind of same idea here. Let's try that. Let's try that one instead. All right, so this line is 45 degrees here. If we kept that 45-degree angle here, look how much would be cut off of that letter. And that letter would be very anemic looking and kind of ready to fall over on its side. This much is much more rounded and more stable, if that makes sense.
Not as skinny.
Is that tricky?
Yeah. All right. That's your half-hour warning, Della.
Okay. All right. So some of the other letters, like W would be the same, V, so we'll just skip that one. The O also has that same wonky 23-degree angle. So, and the O is not, it's never an easy letter in any particular hand. So when you look at the letter O here, this is not a 45-degree angle. That is more like a 25-degree angle. So there's 25. See, that's like 25, 23, 25 degrees. So it's a little, very much narrower than what we're used to. And notice that there's some overlap here at the top. Here we have that same, yell at me when I don't do that properly. Okay. All right. So here we have a much less steep angle at the top than our 45. And same thing here at the bottom. Okay. That's much closer to that 25. So the bottom of the O is like the bottom of the V that we just did. And notice that there's a little bit of overlap right here between this angle and that upright. So let's get back to our O. Okay, so we want to start with our 23-degree angle. And we need to start about a pen width below the headline because we need space for our right-hand side. So about a pen width below at our 23-degree angle. Okay, we're not sticking out on the right, so we're just going straight down. Okay, and then we're coming back up. We'll have a little bit of overlap here at the top. And then straight down again. It could be a little taller. Okay, and what you're looking for in terms of the O, the counter space, you get there. You want this line to be parallel with this line. Okay, and you want a narrow space in between. So you want that shape. And you also want to make sure that you have some space here and some space here, but it's not 45 degrees. Okay. S is the most problematic letter in all alphabets, I think. Durer tells us to start with 2 diamonds in the middle that touch horizontally. So here's our middle diamond. Check our 45-degree angle. So that's where we want to do our 2 diamonds that touch. Okay. And then he says, do the upright on the left side. Okay. And then an upright on the right side coming down. And then we do our diagonal till we get to a closed shape there. And from the bottom point of the S, the bottom point of that diamond, start there and come down. And we kind of have it like a 5. Well, it's a 4-sided diamond, but the sides are not at all the same length of those 4-sided shapes in the middle. So I'm going to put that Durer page here and notice, so here's what we're looking for on the interiors. So you want your counter shapes top and bottom to be a little wonky. It's really kind of an ungainly letter, but it's what he's given us. Okay. And then the letter A, also one of the trickier letters. So we're starting the left side, we're starting halfway down, 45-degree angle, no diamond here. So halfway down between the baseline and the headline, halfway down, diamond. Okay, now this one, we're again lowering our angle to about that 23 degrees. And we want the lower corner of our nib to kind of be about halfway. Let me get my pen. Not as far over as the left side, not as far over as the right side, so kind of halfway in that vertical. And the upper corner of our nib should be on the top line. So kind of in the middle visually, top line. Okay, and about 1.5 to 2 diamonds worth. And then come down and finish it with our diamond at the bottom. Okay, and then for the closing in part, again, on just the corner of your nib, okay, over here, just make a circle that kind of closes that loop. And it's nice if you can kind of get your circle to be a little closer to the top of your left side. More like that. Okay, and again, so instead of when you're doing that, you're rocking up on the corner of your nib and just using the corner of your nib to do that. There are 3 different Z's. I don't know why. He doesn't tell us when one should be used over the other. The first one that he describes has a little uptick. So checking our angle, a little uptick and 2 diamonds worth. And then we're sliding 1 nib width. And once we slid a nib width, then we do a diamond. And then that diamond has a curvy tail like that. So I'll do that again. So up, 2 diamonds worth with a little curve, 1 nib width, a diamond that goes into a curvy tail. The other way he does, the second one, is kind of 3 parallel strokes that are connected by a diagonal line. So kind of 3 unconnected parallel strokes. So go, so the middle one is not as long as the top or the bottom one. And so go about half a diamond up from the bottom, like that. And then the last one is about half of the diamonds. It starts about half of the diamond there and then kind of goes that way. And then your choice, you can go up to connect them, or you could come down to connect them. But that's sort of the gist of that one. Or the third one, which to me looks like a punctuation mark, but what do I know? We've got 2 stacked diamonds. And then the third diamond has that little curvy tail to it. Ugh, like so. So those are 3 different Z's. I know, aren't they funny?
Hilarious.
Okay, the letter L is just a tall letter I without the crescent shape at the top. So pretty simple. No diamond at the top, just come straight down and put your diamond at the bottom. And that's your L, easy peasy. The letter F, too far. Yep, too far. Is the letter L combined with the crossbar for the X that we did earlier. So again, you've done all these parts. Should not be hard. Oh, so we've got that. Foot at the bottom. Okay, and then we want to go about 1.5 nib widths across for our, that's too blobby. Okay, and then just like we did with the X, the top corner of your nib should be right along the left side, the vertical. Okay, and so you want to have 1 nib widths distance across the top, 1/2 nib widths distance on the bottom of that. The letter B is back to that lovely letter V problem that we have where you're changing the angle, but it starts off like a letter L, so that's an easy part. So check our angle, 45 degrees. Do not pick up your pen. The diamond does not stick out on the left. And again, this is where we want to turn our pen. Just put that little 23-degree landing zone in there to help us remember. Okay, and then come back to our 45 degrees for our diamond that touches on the left, the vertical, and it touches the headline on the top. Okay, and then we change back to our 23-degree angle to come straight down and hit that landing zone. Now, I drew that just to give you an idea of where we're headed. You would not want to do that. But notice that we have a smaller amount of space here. If we were just doing 45, that B would stop right there and it would look like it was ready to fall over on the right.
And you're into your Q&A period, Della.
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. All right. Let me see. All right. Let me do the K and the D, and then I want to do the G because the G is the one that I think is the most problematic. I never remember about the Q&A part, and I always forget that. I always think, oh, I have X number amount of time. All right, so K, there are two ways to do that. And I think K is one of the really ugly letters. Starts off like an L, starts off like a B. Okay, so you got your diamond here, and then so what you want to think about is the end of that right corner. That's your landing zone for the foot of the K. So you've got your diamond here. So you're just coming straight into your upright. And so you want to stop there. I hope that makes sense. If you don't like that K, you could also do it this way. I like this one much better. Diamond, diamond, and straight down, and a diamond. This one I think always looks ungainly. The D, -45-degree angle starting at our headline, coming straight down. Do not pick up your pen. And we want that slight 23-degree landing zone. And then up here, the left corner of your nib should be above the left edge. And we don't want 45 degrees, we want a 23-degree angle. So it's not as steep. And that's about 3 blocks, and it should be teetering on the edge of this corner here. And then come down a little farther. Okay, that's our D. And then I said I wanted, the P is pretty simple. The Q is pretty simple. The Q is an upside down B, is what he tells us. The G is problematic in that I don't think his letter G is designed to be done with a broad edge pen. And that's because the angles on the left side are really steep. And according to his, this angle here is really steep. And according to his directions, like he says, start here and then draw lines upwards. It's like, you can't do that with a calligraphy pen, Albrecht. That just doesn't work. But I think the reason that he has such a steep angle here is so that it doesn't get so heavy at the top. So think about that really steep angle. That's like a 60-degree angle at the top. And so you're coming really just very steep down. And then our diamond at the bottom. And then he says to put another diamond right below it. And then we come over to the top. Okay. And here we want that same steep angle. Come straight across. So that you'll have enough sticking out, about a nib width sticking out after your vertical. And there's your G. It's very flat at the top, and it has that angled at the bottom here, and a very narrow diamond or triangle there on the bottom. So other letters I think you can do on your own. There is no J, so a J would just simply be a Y, or an I rather. And when you get down below the baseline, okay, just pull it a little bit to the left like that. And then put a little crescent at the top for your J. All right. Do you need me to do any of those letters again? Do you wish me to do any of the letters that I skipped? Do you have any questions um, about any of the particular letters?
There aren't any questions in chat.
Okay.
So now's the opportunity, people. You can unmute yourselves.
And I'll stop
And,
sharing.
Della wants to know your price of admission. What's one of the things you learned? And then any questions, thoughts, comments. And she'll always do letters again.
Mm-hmm. So even if you're not a big fan of black letter and you just, it's not your thing, what I find useful about this exercise is seeing his proportions and how he places strokes next to each other. I think sometimes when we're looking at, calligraphy books and we look at the ductus and we just have arrows, like we're not always taking the time to think about how those shapes are interacting, how those strokes are interacting with each other. And I think this is breaking it down in this way, I think is sometimes useful just to get us to slow down, look at things, and think about why we're doing things the way we're doing them.
I have a question.
Mhm.
On this form here,
Yep.
it looks like all the diamonds at the top and bottom are within the X height lines.
Mm-hmm.
So we're supposed to stay inside those lines.
Correct. Except
Not
with a few exceptions. So if you look at the bottom of the H, for example, it goes down below that baseline just a little bit. Do you see that?
I do.
Yeah, so that's what makes it an H, as opposed to like a B.
Okay.
So, just looking for little nuances like that is really important. Now, remember that I'm the one who put those blue and red lines in there. Those were not in his original. But that's a good question, Pam. Thank you for asking that.
Mhm.
Sharmila has a question. Could you show the letter P?
Oh, okay, sure. All right, so let me go back to sharing my screen. Bum, bum, bum. Document. All right, so let's look at the letter P on, it helps if I click the word share. It does help. All right, so let me zoom out a little bit. All right, so the letter P is right here. Okay, so starts off like an I, only longer. There's no diamond at the bottom. Then we have another I, no diamond here. This is just like the crossbar that we did for the letter F, for example, except that you see here, this is a 45-degree angle, and this is a much steeper angle. So this is that 60-degree and then 45. So that's a little trickier. And here we have 45 at the bottom. So let me get to our P. starting at 45. Diamond, straight down, no diamond at the bottom, just pick it up. Okay, and then we have another diamond here, straight down, no diamond at the bottom, just pick it up. Okay, and then we're going to steepen our angle. So not 45, steeper. And the top corner is going to touch the upright, and the bottom corner is going to go along the headline. And we're going to just go across.
Thank you, Della.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, and when you look at his P, okay, you want to think about what's the shape at the top, what's the shape at the bottom. So you see at the bottom, it's flat right here. And here it's got a bit of a point. So that's what you're going for to to know that you've done yours correct. Now mine is, if you look at my shape, it's a little too even at the top. So I would say like I would need to move mine second diamond over a little bit. It needs to overlap a little bit more, if that makes sense. So like here. It's not quite it either, but play around with that till you get the shape that you're looking for on the inside. But this is close enough. This would read as a P.
Nice.
All right. Any others?
Sally wants to know what kind of headphones you have. She likes the sound.
Oh,
You can tell me later, but I just wanted to get it down there so I remembered. Like, no, the sound quality and everything was really nice.
ISER. That's the brand, and it's EPOS.
You'll have to write it down.
Well,
We can't
well, of
hear
course
you.
now,
We
but now I
can't hear
couldn't
you
hear you.
unless you got
You
your
couldn't hear
headphones
it,
on.
of course. All right, let me try that again. Let's do that. SENNHEISER is the brand. And then it looks like EPOS, or maybe it's EPO6, something like that. I think it's EPOS.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. All right, I'll stick that back in so I can hear.
Any other questions for Della? We are right up against time.
Right. And thank you all for coming. And please feel free to email me if you have questions, or feel free to email me samples of things that you've done if you're having problems with something, and I'll see if I can help you.
Great.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Della. It's just fantastic. Oh, there we go. Rachel tracked down your headphones. So we get technical,
okay.
we get artistic, we get tools, we get come and bring your troubles. So you get a little bit of everything here at Maker U.
Awesome. And do you want to post the links that I had shared earlier one more time?
I will do that.
Okay. All right. Very good.
I did post them one other time during the thing.
Okay.
Let me do them again. We're all going to go back to the main room, take a little break, and then at 2:30 Central Time, you can join me for weathergrams, or join Sally and really dive into how do you solve your problems and tools and all of those tool triage. Tool triage, when your tool doesn't do what you really need it to do.
Yeah. And yeah, if you have any trouble with breakout rooms, Ann and I, even though we're teaching, we'll be here to kind of help you get to where you're going.
Thank you to
Help
all
you
the
get
colleagues
things
for
done.
having me.
Thanks, Della.
Oh,
Oh, it's
thanks,
a pleasure,
Della.
Della.
That was
Anytime.
great.
So the breakout rooms for tool triage are open, as is weathergrams, so you can move yourself to that breakout room. Just click on the little breakout room button and you can take a wander, and we'll start in 14 minutes. So thanks so much, everybody. Great class again, Della. Well done.